Alright, the Russian counteroffensive in Kharkiv region. They tried to attack Ukraine moving towards Kharkiv, but they totally messed up with their forces. They bogged down and Ukraine was capable to stop the Russian advancement. Yeah, the fights are still ongoing in Vovchan city, and also Russia tries to move to Lipsy, but unsuccessfully. And we know more that Ukraine is up to start a counterattack to repel the Russian aggression in Kharkiv region. That's why Russia started to use their other methods. Basically terrorizing Ukrainian civilians, attacking Kharkiv infrastructure, civilian infrastructure. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. So we have the Bloomberg article about the case that Ukraine is planning to counterattack Russian forces near Kharkiv. Ukraine started to collect its reserves to advance northbound. According to statistics we currently have, Russia loses 8 soldiers per 1 Ukrainian. Russians thought that they planned this operation in Kharkiv very precisely, but actually they failed with it. And they urgently sent many more reinforcements, so the total group of the Russian army near the Kharkiv region is close to 40,000 soldiers for now. However, Ukraine has obtained artillery shells, javelins and many more stuff, which helps Ukraine to counteract the Russian advancements. After seeing the result in Kharkiv Oblast, now Russia hesitates to strike towards the Sumy region of Ukraine, because they have even smaller group in that place, so probably they're gonna move their Sumy group to reinforce Kharkiv direction, and maybe they'll hesitate to attack Sumy after all, after they see this result. But if Putin cares about the Russian losses, well, maybe just local commanders, but Putin mainly he doesn't care. My friends, if you want to support the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may join my Patreon page. It is available with my personal link in the video description just below, or you may just scan the QR code available on the screen. Thank you so much for your kind support. So because Russia is unable to achieve its military goals on the front lines, they intensify their attacks on civilian infrastructure. The construction mall, it's the biggest construction mall in Kharkiv city, was targeted today with 2 gliding bombs. If it was just a single bomb, yes, they might have said, oh, the bomb deviated, but 2 bombs, 2 strikes, Saturday during the daytime, and this mall is quite a busy one because Kharkiv is under the constant Russian attacks, and you need lots of the construction materials which you may get in those construction malls to repair buildings, flats and windows. After the Russian strikes on Kharkiv, well, Russia decided to strike the mall itself. Unfortunately, there were civilians inside by the time of the Russian strike and many lost their lives. It wasn't the only Russian strike today, they also aimed towards the city center, to the local park. Luckily in the park the shell didn't explode because there was the kids' playground very close to it, but the residential buildings in the city center were damaged. In this case, I'm sure that Ukraine should be allowed to use the Western-made weaponry to target the Russian infrastructure, military infrastructure. We're speaking about, for example, airfield Baltimore. It's not that far away from Ukrainian territory, even closer than the Russian military airfield of Belbek in occupied Crimea, which was targeted by ATACMS several of the times. And Russia uses this particular airfield to perform the strikes on Kharkiv and nearby regions of Ukraine. They have the fleet of strategic bombers and Sukhoi 34 fighters bombers, which carry usually the gliding bombs, which were used by Russia today to target the construction mall. Also at this hour I have received the information that Russia launched their strategic bombers. They are flying now to the launching spot in Caspian Sea, so in around 3 hours they're gonna launch their missiles, and in around 5 hours they're gonna reach all of the points of Ukraine. Definitely Ukraine needs more of the air defense to counteract the threat, and also Ukraine needs the permission. Today Russia showed that they do not hesitate to strike civilians, even though the day before Putin held a speech about the peace talks with Ukraine, and we see that Russia is not seeking for peace. I believe that in a best case scenario, Ukraine will obtain the permission to strike the Russian military infrastructure the next week. Analyzing the media sources, I came to the conclusion that just Jake Sullivan is opposing that decision, and he has the high influence on Joe Biden. Well, hopefully Biden will be convinced by other his team members, let's say. I guess I had to blur some of the images, but the full picture you may see on my Telegram channel. I mean, not the dramatic images, but the constant update on what is happening in Ukraine. So if you want to be updated, subscribe for my Telegram. You may find it in the video description just below. Right, Russia lost one more Sukhoi 25. It's already 8 Sukhoi for the recent 3 weeks that Russian army is losing in Pokrovsk direction, so on the eastern part of Ukraine. A great job done by 110th Brigade. They have lots of the manned parts from what I understood. And just imagine how the Sukhoi 25 pilots afraid to perform their flights. They have the funeral ceremonies once in 3 days or sometimes once in 2 days. Absolutely tremendous losses for the Russian attack aviation. It means that Russia doesn't have the air superiority. They try to move forward with the front line. They send their attack airplanes, but there is no backup from the Russian air defense or from their fighter jets, because there is also the great risk for them to get into the area of Ukrainian air defense. The Ukrainian army has expanded its bridgehead in Krinky towards Kazachie Lahiri. Before, there was already the landing operation of Ukrainian armed forces in Kazachie Lahiri. It was successful. Even the main commander of the local fighting unit was captured. But nevertheless, after a few days, Ukraine left Kazachie Lahiri, and now our forces moved there from Krinky, moving day by day. Russia is just unable to stop Ukrainian army, repel it back on the other shore, and the main task of Ukraine is to deflect the Russian armed forces from the other parts of the front lines, so Russia is forced to keep their forces in this region. And they have already lost at least 2,000 soldiers in Krinky alone, plus lots of the vehicles in their useless mid-wave attacks. Meanwhile, Elon Musk confirms that Russia tries to jam the Starlink satellites. The last month, Starlink came out with some sort of the solution of how to block the Russian stations on occupied territories. And definitely the Russian military bloggers start to complain about the poor signal or unoperatable units. So probably Russia has decided to block the signal totally. But nevertheless, Starlink still holds. SpaceX is spending significant resources combating Russian jamming efforts. They have succeeded in shutting down every communication system except Starlink. So what other communication systems Russia managed to shut down? Well, maybe Elon Musk knows more. An interesting move from Viktor Orban, the leader of Hungary. He wants to redefine its NATO membership. Basically, he opposes the involvement of the Hungarian armed forces in the conflicts outside NATO territory. Hungary was taken in NATO back in 1999. By that time, Orban also was a prime minister of the country. Moreover, he provided the NATO forces with the local airfield of Tarsar to refuel the NATO airplanes and to support their bombing of Serbia, and later on completely opened all of the airfields for NATO operations. And Hungarian forces are still presented in Iraq. They will be there until the end of 2025. Also, Hungarian forces joined the operation in Afghanistan. So those kind of the actions were totally okay for Orban, but now he changed his rhetorics. Why? Well, because he's a populist politician. I do not like him, and you may understand why. I wouldn't be very optimistic about the Western support for Ukraine this year, but probably we have the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, yet it's not 100% correct, but it seems like Ukraine will obtain more Patriot systems, more than one. Totally, those could be 7 systems in Ukraine. Hopefully, it will be approved. NBC News provides kind of the worrying information. They rely on the sources in the White House administration saying that Putin, together with Kim Jong-un, are discussing the provocation in Korean Peninsula. Are Russia and North Korea planning an October surprise that aids Trump? So maybe it's the conspiracy theory, but maybe it is truth that Putin wants Trump really to win the elections in the United States. Because as Trump said before, he is willing to trade some of the Ukrainian territories for that peace agreement with Russia. Moreover, Kremlin speaker Peskov says that Putin is planning his journey to North Korea very soon. So as we see, the dictatorship countries are willing to intensify the conflict with West, with democratic states, creating more hotspots on our planet. One in Ukraine, one could be in Korea, the other could be in Taiwan, Israel, as you can see right now, with Hamas movement, which is supported by Iran. So there are lots of the proxy wars, and there is a chance for them to evolve into a bigger war. Well, for now, we cannot be sure that something is planned on October, but it is better to put attention on those news, because before there were numerous of the articles and media sources saying about the possible war between Ukraine and Russia. It happened before 2022, and honestly, majority of Ukrainians didn't believe in that. And this is what Communist China shows on their TV channels, how they use their aviation to strike their worst enemy, Taiwan, obviously. They show it on national TV, definitely how they performed this strike. Just to remind you now, the military drills are ongoing around Taiwan Island. So they have it in their propaganda. Ukraine starts freeing some of the prisoners to join its military. The first group of 350 prisoners were released to fight on the front lines. So Ukraine joins this Russian strategy where prisoners, if they voluntarily want to fight, they can be released, and later on they will be freed. I think in their case after the war is over, but nevertheless there are lots of the volunteers from the prisoners. We are speaking at least about 5,000 prisoners. In case of the hard crime commitment cases, there is no way Ukraine allows those prisoners to join Ukrainian army. But those who are released will be formed into the separate fighting unit. Well, I think that after all, this strategy is good because Russia already showed that it works, even though the previous commander of Ukrainian army, Zaluzhny, was strongly against this decision. But only practice will show if this decision was right. About the future peace summit in Switzerland, Zelensky told just about 3 topics they're willing to discuss. Totally, he says that there are 10 of the topics, but they will discuss, first of all, nuclear and energy security, provision security and humanitarian aid, exchange of the war prisoners, returning of the Ukrainian kids to Ukraine, and basically that's it. So all of the peace initiative will be limited, I guess, from his speech to those 3 topics. Because after all, the rest of Zelensky's program is absolutely not possible to achieve at the current stage. To make it happen, Ukraine needs lots and lots of the new resources, first of all, military resources, weaponry. Alright, so we have the satellite images from the Russian surveillance unit near Alushta, Crimea. I already told you about this big locator radar placed in the mountains near the shore. So here we have the new satellite image showing that there was the fire in some of the buildings nearby. But the radar itself is still fine. However, the station itself is unfunctional for the Russian army. Russia tried to intercept missiles which were launched to target this very important infrastructure, but failed with it. Right guys, there is the recent update of the deep state military map, and first of all we go to the Kharkiv Oblast. As you can see, it's red. I haven't checked it. So yesterday, today, no any movement. So this area is mostly standstill for a few days already. I remember how Russian mass media over-exaggerated this Russian offensive, which happened already 16 days ago. And they were able to capture just few of the villages with their mighty forces. But it was so advertised by the Russian media that they were sure that they will capture Kharkiv in 3 days or something like that. But nevertheless, enemy advances in other places. For the latest update, enemy moved in Umansk, totally occupying this village. So yesterday, today, they have this attack vector. They're still offending from Avdiivka direction, so obviously in the future perspective they will occupy this territory and also this one. And they also occupied one more village, partially, Ivanivka. Here we speak about the Kharkiv Oblast, so there is the city of Kupiansk, which Russia wants to retake, so their main idea is to offense from this side, from the northern part of Kharkiv Oblast, and also from Kislivka to advance simultaneously, capturing Kupiansk city and all of this vast territory back. It didn't work, but still Russia is capable to capture some of the ground, as you can see, but in July they will be unable to do it, because Ukraine will obtain all of the necessary equipment from the United States. We have the confirmation that definitely the destroyed Russian air defense systems were S-400s. It happened in Donbass recently, just a few days ago. Ukraine ambushed those with ATACMS. Happy crew, well, no more. My friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.